Well, we're back, and my script says I'm supposed to turn things over to Kent. So, Kent, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is you, Carl.
I see.
For viewers who aren't familiar with you, as familiar with you as we are, they may not know that you are you're an amazing guy in many respects. You are always kind of on the cutting edge of what's happening out there in the publishing world. And I know we rely on you a lot to inform us about things we ought to know.
We do.
Try Wikipedia. It's likely to be as accurate.
No, you're a whole lot more interesting.
And one of the things that you have, you've been really delving a lot into cutting edge publishing. That's an alternative publishing to the normal, what we think of as the normal route of paper book. I mean, you've gone that route. You have several great series out there, 3 as a matter of fact, that have done the paper route. But now you're trying something entirely different in this new technological age. Tell us about that.
I'm going to write a book about a boy who has a paper route.
With the paper route.
With the paper route, yeah. Well, one of the things that the paper route itself, the paper business itself is interesting, particularly for bookstores. When we all started in this business, there were maybe 10 or 12 major publishers in New York. And they were all in New York, mainstream, so-called mainstream publishers. Today there are like 6. But in those years, there were only 3 or 4 publishers around the country that were what you could call independent publishers who were really doing good work.
Several of them actually happen to be here in Minnesota.
That's true. With the technological changes, there are now over 150,000 small independent publishers scattered around the country.
Wow.
And there are only 6 mainstream publishers, and they're all owned by somebody else. There are no independent publishers left. Well, there's one, but not in New York.
Yeah.
Poison Pen.
Poison Pen.
In terms of our area, there may be other publishers. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to publishers of other kinds of fiction because I'm interested in crime fiction, obviously. So and that has come about partly because of shifting needs and shifting costs, but it's also because of technology.
The whole technological field.
That, of course, is the major difference. It's now possible for anybody, literally anybody, to publish and distribute a book. There are a lot of regional, small and medium-sized regional distributors that are available to you if you're willing to supply them with enough copies. They'll distribute them for you. They want an arm and a leg for the book. But then you get to the whole area of electronic publishing.
Do you know, the question of distribution used to always be the stumbling block for publishing yourself or for small publications. But with the internet, not a problem anymore?
How do you go to a bookstore with an electronic book?
Well, that's the problem. The electronic books, e-books as we call them, are putting enormous pressure on small independent bookstores. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is that small independent bookstores, a lot of them were started as mom and pop operations by people who are like me, they're getting old, they really like to get out of the business. And a number of them are selling their businesses. The big chains and electronic publishing is often blamed for things that are not really their fault, which doesn't mean that I don't think there's a serious problem. But a lot of independent bookstores are going to figure out a way, and I think there are ways that they can do that. They're going to figure out a way to utilize e-books selling. Maybe they'll sell online in addition to having what we call a bricks and mortar store, or maybe they will actually sell books out of their own store. Maybe they'll sell discs, CDs out of their own store. But the other thing that electronic publishing is doing is we all know that the royalties run for us someplace between 10 and about 15%. True? Okay. In electronic publishing with a Kindle, for example, starting in June, Amazon is going to offer 70% to the author without a publisher involved. So they have a system, you can upload your book. Now, how good does it look on Kindle? That depends to some extent on how well you've prepared your manuscript, whether it's in Word or one of the other kinds of things.
And you need a new cover if it's been published previously.
You need another cover, that's true, and maybe you need another ISBN. All those things are part of the deal. So you have to learn some technical things of the publishing business if you're going to be an electronic publisher.
And yet there are more and more, aren't there, I don't know what you'd call them, packagers that will help you do this?
There are, but they take a good chunk of the money. You can. It isn't that difficult if you read a few manuals, look at some things on the internet. My latest issue or release, called "The Case of the Great Train Robbery," is being issued only as an ebook at the moment. I'm publishing it myself. It's available on Smashwords and will be up on Kindle next week.
Smashwords, tell us a little bit about
Smashwords is a website where you can go and use what they call their meat grinder, and you can upload in many different formats a document which then the meat grinder formats for you.
And they will then send to iPad and to
That's correct. And they
Nook
send I have a list. They send to Sony, to the Apple iPod and iPad, and we should look at the Kindle, Mobi.
Do they do that for you?
They do that automatically. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's the distribution problem solved right there.
That's right. As long as you're willing to buy the book electronically. Now, no one is saying, well, there are doomsayers. You know, when FM came along, it was going to be the end of AM radio, and television was going to be in the radio altogether, and movies are going to be in the bargain there too. But one of the things, would you turn it on and show us? Just put it out here so that the camera can see. Yeah, this is for those of you who don't know. This is the newest Apple invention. It's called an iPad, and you can hook up to Wi-Fi and you can play games. You can write on it. You can do all kinds of things on it and carry it around. It's the next generation of laptops, but it does one other thing as well. You can download books to it and read them. You carry that on the airplane.
And keep them in a virtual bookshelf.
You have a bookshelf. You can go to a bookstore if you're online.
And we don't want to be necessarily a sales representative for Apple. It's a wonderful device, but it's not the only device. There are many others that are available for book. And Kindle, for example, has sold over 3 million Kindles. Something like, I wrote it down here someplace.
It might be the end.
Something like 500,000. Yeah, 500,000 of these devices have been sold since it came out, and it came out in January of 2010. So it's selling like crazy.
No, actually, it came out in April. I think.
It's only a month or two from when we were doing this recording. The Barnes & Noble has a Nook, which is another device for reading books. It's a proprietary product, but all of these things work. And so what's happening is that authors are beginning to hire their own editors, as I did, and publish then their own book for a major piece of the profit. For example, I get 80% of whatever books are sold through Smashwood.
I would like to know what you charge, because Joe Conrad says you can't charge much.
Joe Conrad, so you can charge whatever. I'm charging $8 for the book.
Okay.
It's like the cost of a paperback. Other people I know who an author, I can't mention his name, but he told me in confidence that he published about 24 books in the 60s and early 70s, which were all paperback originals, which he now has the electronic rights to. The books, of course, are not selling. They're out of print, basically, as papers. And he's selling them now on Kindle for $2 a piece. And he's taking in $400 or $500 a month in royalties now. Wow. You see, well, if you expand that in different ways, you see that authors are now in a position to really control what they're doing. The problem, and it is self-publishing. The problem with that label, of course, is that self-publishing, like vanity publishing, tends to be looked down on in the publishing world. Partly because the people are afraid of it, but also because a lot of vanity published books are really poor quality. If an author, within the sound of my voice, if you're thinking about being published, you need to pay for somebody to design a good cover if you're not able to do that kind of thing, because the cover sells the book on Kindle, on the Kindle bookstore, or on the other stores.